Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video. During Sunday's vlog, I had asked a question, and that was whether or not you guys wanted to see my take on different kinds of filter media, their pros and cons. Now, my normal approach after asking such a question would be to, first off, see if there are any comments left about it, and then to put up a poll if there was enough interest, and see if there was enough generalized interest in the topic. Well, as it turns out, enough people had commented and asked questions, and I think we're just going to dive right into it. I mean, there's an awful lot of material here, so I am going to start off by cutting out one whole section, and that is commercial medias. I have used a fair number of them. I don't care for them, mostly because they are really expensive, and you end up spending a lot more money. And I did a few runs on experiments with various filters already, and if you go and check my video list, and I haven't really noticed any kind of noticeable improvement that would warrant the extra expenditure. So I'm going to go to the inexpensive stuff that I use and how I get them and what I like them for, and leave comments and let me know what you think. Now, the first and most obvious that everyone's probably used at one time or other is polyester wool. Now, you can buy this in a pet store, and it comes in sheets. This is a sheet form, but this actually comes from a fabric shop, and it is quite a bit cheaper. This is not my favorite form of it. I actually managed a few years ago to get a hold of a fair amount of a much more compressed version, and I really liked it. Haven't been able to find it in a fabric shop since. I am going to look around once this is gone and see if I can find some more of it. It is very good for fine filtering, like getting rid of the small particles. I know some people have gotten the form of this that comes in like a hobby bag for stuffing bears or whatever else that you're making, or pillows. That is fine as well. I prefer the sheets just simply because it just suits my style. But as far as a filter media goes, this is excellent. It is obviously something, if it goes into a filter, is going to require more frequent cleaning, and if that's not a problem, this is definitely something that you should be interested in because it is inexpensive. The next filter media I want to cover is also very basic and everyone's very familiar with it, and that is open pore sponges. Now, I actually prefer open pore sponge to polywool for doing my particulate removal. It is not as fine a remover as the polywool, obviously, but it doesn't require cleaning as often. And I find if I set up a tank a little bit differently, take a little bit more care with that, it actually doesn't really make any difference at all. Now, that little piece of sponge you see on top is my preferred way of getting these things. I do an awful lot of installations of inline pumps for people, and the pumps you buy, or the ones I was buying for quite some time, always came with an intake sponge like this. And I just cut them up and use them in filters. Now, the big block you see underneath there is one I bought from a store. I had an idea for a project, and it's still coming up, and I can obviously just cut pieces off that I want. It is a really good quality sponge. Now, if you're going to go to like a dollar store and things along those lines for your sponges, be very careful, because an awful lot of cheap sponges that you can get will have antibacterial, antifungal agents in them, and that's definitely not something that you want in your fish tanks. You could probably still find in like a cheap store sponges that aren't treated that way, but again, just be very careful with it. It is something that happens. If you get the sponge and you open up the package and you can smell like something on it, like you can smell like a scent, then it's most likely been treated with something. So just keep that in mind. Now, sponges are amazing. There's nothing I can say against them. I'm not into pure sponge filters, as you can see on almost all the tanks I've shown you so far. I do have one aquarium that is the exception, and we'll get to that as a little bit of video near the end. I like them. I also prefer putting them inside box filters instead of just using them as the sponge filters that you see. No real reason for it, it's just my preference. I find it traps a little bit more dirt that way. But other than that, I mean, these are great additions to any sort of filter media system that you want to use. They are inert. They're great homes for bacteria. They will trap a lot of detritus. And like I said, there's nothing I can say against them. Just make sure that you clean them every now and then. That's about it. Next up are the hard medias, and of course the first one is just plain old gravel. It is natural, it doesn't affect your water chemistry at all, and I, again, have nothing really negative to say about this. The only thing I steer away from when it comes to gravel is I don't use any of the commercial colored ones. They are sprayed with something. I find them a little bit smoother. I've never had a negative experience with them, but just from that extra smoothness, I figure there is at least a little bit less surface area to them. And that brings me to a question I just got on Sunday's vlog about why I use gravel now instead of lava rock. And I'll get to the lava rock in a second, but my main reason is this year, because of all the things that have been going on, I assume, I haven't been able to get any. I did look at almost all the garden shops, and I did get a response to a comment afterwards saying that I can get them online through like barbecue places and also like on Amazon. And I'll have a look into that. I still have a little bit of it left, and I've been saving it up for a couple of filters I want to build. And if I do run out, I will definitely check into that because I do like lava rock as well, and we'll get to those pros and cons of that in a minute. But as far as gravel goes, it works, and I have done a great many filter tests between this and also with lava rock and combinations thereof, and I don't find a significant drop off but just using gravel by itself. But that doesn't mean that, like I said, lava rock doesn't give you a little bit extra. I do like it a lot, and I do have a bunch of other uses for it that I like it for. It's just, as far as like just putting into a box filter, I find that gravel is just as good. So here we go, we're going to get into the lava rock now. This is another media I've used for a very, very long time. And my preferred setup for this sort of media is with a trickle filter, because with all that water cascading and dripping down from above, it has a great chance for degassing, and it hits the rock, of course, and permeates it and goes around the surface, and you can interact with all the bacteria and everything. Great for degassing. I'm not a big fan of it by itself in undergravel filters and box filters because of the same problem, or in this case a problem, because now the water has a chance to actually completely bypass the media because of all the extra void volume. But I do really like lava rock when it's mixed with gravel in box filters, and again, of course, with in undergravel filters. So then it's really good again because you fill all those interstitial spaces with the gravel, and it makes the water go where you want it to go. The other thing I really like about lava rock, and this is obviously, a lot of people would consider it not filtration, but it is. I like just putting a little pile of it in the corner of an aquarium, and I find it's great for like I have a lot of scuds and shrimp, and it gives a little home for that in a section of the aquarium where they can breed, and then they eventually come out and get eaten. It is an excellent system for that, and I really do care for it in so many different ways. It is a wonderful filter media. It just needs to be thought of when you're designing your filter, how you want the filter to work, and then the slight pro in one situation or a slight con in the other situation is easily gotten around. Anyway, it's just another media that's around quite a bit. Except, of course, this year, hopefully I'll find some at some point. I have enough left over for a couple of projects I want to work on. If I ever get through that, I guess I'll have to order it online if I want some more. Hopefully next spring things will go back to somewhat normalcy, and I'll be able to just go pick up a huge bag of it in a garden store, which is the other big pro of this thing. It's cheap. And the other good thing I forgot to mention is it is inert, just like the gravel, so you won't have any issues with it altering your water chemistry. Last and definitely not least is coral rock. It is pretty much exactly the same as lava rock for filter and pros and cons, except one major difference, of course. It will harden the water and also raise the pH, which is really good for African cichlids, guppies, most livebearers, and a bunch of other fish. But it's definitely something you need to keep in mind when you're setting it up. Definitely don't put it in something that requires nice soft acid water. It will definitely not be that kind of environment for them. And the other problem with it, if you're going to go to a store and buy this, is it is expensive. I was lucky enough that, over the great many years, I've kept quite a few saltwater aquariums, and I've converted a lot of saltwater aquariums to freshwater setups as various economic situations have changed. So I have an awful lot of this material laying around in the fish room, and I use it quite often when I want to, like I said, keep the water slightly more alkali, especially for guppies. And again, it's another great one just to throw a few chunks in the bottom of the aquarium, and it does all the same sort of uh, microcosm development as lava rock does. And of course, you can do the exact same thing with a bunch of large grain gravel. It doesn't have to be something fancy like this. That's pretty much the basics of filter media. There are so many that you can buy, and I have tried a bunch of them. I have got clients who have had them, and I've used them, and I haven't found anything really beneficial about them over just these plain ones that, again, don't really cost anything to you except, of course, the coral. So I want to end up with a clip of my Pleco breeding tank, and this is my version of a sponge filter. If you are interested in how this is put together, just leave a comment, and I will try and put that into one of the vlogs coming up. The reason why I'm showing you this is to show you this filter for starters, because this is nothing but layers of sponge with a bit of polywool on top. But the other thing is I have started recently changing how I feed my plecos, because this tank, even though it is a little cloudy at the moment, used to be a lot worse. Had a hard time actually getting it to be clear. And I've switched over my feeding process. It's definitely coming up in a video soon. There is a ton of plecos, shrimp, and everything else in this tank. So it was quite heavily loaded, but I found that the problem was a specific food I was using. So that's going to come up in a video, and other than that, leave comments. Let me know what you think of what I've talked to you about for filter media, and any ideas you have of yourself for what you use for filter media, inexpensive ways of getting new sources for it. If you've had experiences with commercial medias that you really enjoyed and worked well with, definitely leave comments about that as well. I tend not to simply because of the cost, but there may be benefits. So definitely leave comments, and thank you very much for taking your time to watch my videos, and I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.